Welcome back to Bramble Cottage. It has been one of the driest spells here in nearly 100 years, which is to say it hasn't rained here for a whole month. But here we've got five things that we're doing to keep the garden going during this dry period and hopefully get us through to the end of this season as well. Hi, I'm Cameron. This is Stina, that's Suki, and that's Bramble. We moved 200 miles to the south of Scotland to take a chance on a life that we wanted to live. We're slowly building our dream, doing as much as we can ourselves and repurposing where possible to save money and reduce waste. Welcome to Bramble Cottage. So before we get into the tips, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background about us and where we are right now. We moved to this location, to Bramble Cottage, around about nearly 10 months ago now. Last year it rained consistently all the time. This year we have been going for 4+ weeks with absolutely zero rain and no end in sight. This is the driest spell in I think 70 to 80 years for this area, which makes it very difficult to keep these plants upright and living. So the real point here is we haven't had much chance to actually get some of our systems in place yet. So we've got a little bit of work still to do, but the things that we're doing right now are these 5 things. Tip 1. Rainwater capture. We were lucky enough that when we moved in we had this water butt left behind. We've also added another one to the other side of the house. Unfortunately this only works when there is actually some rain to capture. But as you can see, we've very much depleted everything that's there and it is down below the tap level. So we're hoping for any rain that we get to start filling this up. Now this particular water butt is set up to gather rain from this gutter, which is quite a nice large piece of roof. So once we do get some rain, we should get it full pretty darn quickly.
This is the other water butt that I've just recently installed on the other side of our site, and which we brought from our previous place in the north of Scotland. So this is a rainwater terrace and it's a stackable water butt system, so it looks a little bit odd, but basically you can fill each of these in a modular fashion and there's an overflow inside, so when the top one fills it will start to fill the bottom one, and then tubes on the left will show you where the water level is inside, so you can kind of use them together or separately as you see fit. But the most interesting things about these is that they have these punnets, so you can plant a few veggies in them, and those punnets include wicking mats, so that if the water butt's sufficiently full, it doesn't work if it's too empty, but if it's sufficiently full then it's just enough to tide those punnets over and keep them moist so that your veggies don't dry out too quickly in between waterings. At the moment you can see that I've got a few sad tomatoes in here, so these have been cooking inside the house in too much sun for the earlier part of the season, and then they've been planted out in far too little moisture since a week or two ago, and they're not looking very happy at all, so the sooner we get the rain the better. When we do get that rain, then this water butt's being set up underneath this downpipe, and so it will fill from this entire roof, which is near enough half the house. So this one should fill really quickly, and with a little bit of space on the right we can get more of these and then stack them together and start to capture even more water over time.
Tip 2. Hügel mound. So Hügel mound is really designed to try and capture the moisture and hold it in, and then it can be used throughout the year. So this is really just going to be a water capture system. Because we haven't been here that long, it hasn't had much chance to capture any water. So the end result's going to be, once this has had some time to settle in, is we're going to have a much more mounded up area right here, which is going to help hold the water in this place, and it's going to encourage the wildlife, and it's going to help water the rest of the garden throughout the rest of the year.
If you're not familiar with Hügelkultur, it's a system of building mounds out of old decaying wood, leaf litter and other organic matter, and then leaving that to break down further until it becomes a plantable mound. Hügel mounds contain huge amounts of carbon material, so they act like a sponge, increasing the water storage capacity of the landscape and sustaining it over an extended period. This doesn't look like much now because in 10 months there hasn't been opportunity to gather much woody material on our site to build the mounds up yet. But once they're done, and we'll be building them up over years, I think, probably, then they'll create greater visual interest. They'll have sloping sides, so it'll basically be a mound in the middle of the garden, which will increase the surface area for planting, create a greater variety of aspects, different shade levels, that kind of thing. And then the mounded area will retain moisture, but it will also help the flat surrounding areas by adding more shade and creating something for microclimate, almost like a miniature valley. Even though it's early days, you can already see that this is building up something of a more balanced ecosystem. Under the soil layer, there's just a little bit more moisture, and then the plant growth in this central part of the garden is just that bit taller and more lush than other areas, and they've all been mown just as infrequently. For anyone interested in trying Hügelkultur, we'll add a link in the description to a good overview video.
Tip 3. Mulch. Now, the mulch is a really nice layer which is going to help keep any moisture in the soil for the plants, and it's going to save it from evaporating away. So that is one of the things which we've done. Unfortunately, we don't have enough mulch for the entire garden, but what we have been doing is we've been using what we've got. So this is some of the compost that we started building up last year, or Stina started building up last year, and we're using this as a mulch layer. So a nice organic layer. It's not broken down enough yet, but we've just got to start using it. And we'll filter out any of the large pieces and it'll go back into the compost ready for next year, or maybe it'll get chipped down. But this is our second compost bin, which is already well on its way to being full.
A few things to add to what Cameron said. So I'm a great believer that the earth grows weeds to heal its scars. So no earth should ever be left exposed if at all possible. And ideally the cover should be plant growth. So cover crops is another, really good form of mulch. And we've been trying to sow some cover crops on some of the new beds here, but with limited success because of the drought. So instead I'm just using whatever I can get my hands on. So the bag of mulch, the ton bag of mulch we got last year, that's long since gone. The compost bin that I started, I've opened that up early to start using it ahead of time. So it's not great for growing anything in yet. It's going to burn plants and things, but just having some sort of cover on any of the new beds is better than nothing at all. And then any woody material we get, we've been chipping that, and we've been putting it out on quite a lot of the new paths. We've been trying to get rid of the gravel. You can see here the difference, just in a light wind, an area of soil that isn't covered is blowing away, and then even a tiny pathetic layer of mulch from what little chippings we managed to get hold of is enough to protect the soil. In terms of moisture, this is a bed that I've been using my compost on, so you can see how thick and chunky it is, but even just lifting a few clumps of this up, you can see how much more moisture there is underneath this compared to so many of the other areas of the garden. So it really helps to put a big heap of mulch around every plant to reduce the amount of water it's going to need. Other things I've also been using as mulch are wool from eco packaging. So increasingly these days we get sort of boxes with frozen goods in particular wrapped in wool, and so I collect that, lay it down on these areas of lawn that I've been turning into beds, and then put cardboard on top, and then some sort of layer of mulch on top of that. And between the three of them we're sort of adding nutrition to the soil, killing off the grass, mulching it, doing all the good things all at the same time.
Tip 4. Greywater Capture. I think it's no secret that every single day we are using huge amounts of water just to wash our hands, brush our teeth, all of those silly little things. And realistically we should be able to capture that water and reuse it to water the plants. So to help achieve this, I've rigged up a very simple system under my bathroom sink, which is just to simply collect the water from the outlet into a large trug, which can then be used in the garden. It does have some slight problems in that there will be some chemicals in there, but everything that we're using is quite eco-friendly, so it should be low chemical already, or we've checked and it is kind of low chemical already. So you can just see running the water, outlet, past the U-bend, into the trug. Very simple, and you can do this straight away, and it's going to save you running the hose to get the water you need for your plants.
The one thing we do need to think about is the alkalinity for watering. So we have some litmus paper and we're going to test that and then try and correct it with, vinegar or something like that. But we'll have to see how off it is when we've collected enough. The other thing to mention here is that's one of the reasons why we've chosen to collect greywater from our bathroom sink in the first instance. So not only was it one of the most accessible places to get some water, but it's also where we have the fewest products. So we wouldn't dare do this with, say, dishwasher runoff or laundry runoff at the moment. But it would be interesting to experiment with systems for doing that too.
Tip 5. This particular tip is probably one of the most important ones. We are not watering every single day out here. It would be very easy to come out here and water all the time. But then all that you're really doing is you're encouraging the root systems to grow at a very shallow level. Whereas what you really want to do is have the root systems to grow deeper into the ground, go looking for that moisture. So again, if you just water all the time with whatever water you have, it's not going to encourage that deep growth of the roots.
Number 5 is really about not mollycoddling the plants. So instead we water as infrequently as we can get away with, and I walk around the site on a daily basis and look at the plants to see what they need. And I have certain indicator plants that I've been spotting will tell me when they need watering more quickly than others. So for the trees, I have this one tree that will wilt a little bit before the other 3 do, so I don't let it get too stressed, but when it starts to look a little bit less fresh, then I will give this tree at least half a can of water in one go, a really solid drench, and then I'll go and do the other 3 trees at the same time, even if they're not showing any signs of stress. This is better than giving a little bit of a canful on a daily basis, because it's encouraging the trees to spend the intervening time putting roots down into the soil and finding their own source of water. For the herbaceous perennials, then this is my indicator plant, this little cowslip here. So it collapses approximately every few days. It's just on a slightly raised bit of ground, and it would expect to be growing in a lush hedgerow, but it's out on its own on this corner right now, so it's not as resilient as it should be. We're hoping to get more plants in around it in time, and then it should be happier. But for now, every time it starts to wilt, then I will water that, and I will also water any of the other new plants that I've put in this bed and others around the site. So newly established plants I'm watching a bit more carefully, any seedlings I'm watching more carefully, and I'll water those as and when this cowslip says I should. Hopefully, with Cameron having set up some initial greywater capture systems, we'll be able to pick up more on that, and then we'll reduce the amount of mains water that we're having to use. But hopefully even more than that, it will rain soon.